You and the state, an unhealthy relationship. We seem to depend on politicians to engender favorable change in nearly the same way a child depends on its parents to provide food and protection. I want to explain how it is unhealthy to rely on government, also referred to as the state, to fix our problems. The government has a monopoly on the use of force. Only authorized employees of the state, such as police officers, are permitted to use force. If you or I were to assault someone else because they disobeyed a rule we made up, we would likely be arrested. However, if the legislature makes up a rule, which we would call a law, and sends a police officer to enforce that law with violence or the threat of violence, this is somehow viewed as morally acceptable. In reality, it is no more morally acceptable than if you or I had created and enforced our own rule. I make this point to convey the immorality and inconsistency of institutionalizing a subjective underclass, the citizenry, at the mercy of a ruling class, the state, with exclusive rights to violence. We are allowed to vote for members of the legislature, which could help, but this is merely the subjugated asking their elected officials to control others according to their own beliefs. We must understand that all laws are threats of violence by an institution which, as previously stated, has exclusive rights to commit those acts of violence necessary to enforce each law. Therefore, each time you ask your representatives to ratify new legislation, you are requesting the possible use of violence on real people to enforce those provisions. We need to change the way we think about laws to include this consideration of possible violence. I'll use two laws or sets of laws as examples: criminalization of marijuana and taxation. The peaceful recreational use of drugs such as marijuana is banned in many parts of the United States. This means that the state is permitted to assault, arrest, or even kill, if the criminal resists arrest, people who are not causing harm to anyone. Should individuals be allowed to choose how to treat their own bodies? By criminalizing marijuana, the freedom to personally decide to use drugs based on gathered information is stripped from everyone. There is no real decision to be made between the use or abstention of drugs because there is only one choice that avoids the danger of state violence. Our government treats us like children incapable of making adult decisions. Taxation has similar problems. If you believe that your tax money is being spent in ways that you cannot morally support, you still have to continue to pay your taxes. If you choose to withhold taxes, you will be imprisoned. If you don't support subsidizing the Brazilian cotton industry, yes, that actually happens, the endless war in the Middle East, the development of weapons, the maintenance of the United States' 900+ military bases abroad, or anything funded by the state which could be morally objectionable, you still have to pay for it with your money. Financially acting on your moral principles will only land you in a prison, and resisting arrest could result in your death. Because taxation is enforced predominantly by the threat of violence, accepting taxation as a just institution is giving consent to the state to point guns at your fellow countrymen and women, to coerce them into giving up a portion of their livelihood. It can be seen that a reliance on the government to fix problems by passing legislation is equal to a reliance on coercing people to alter their behavior at the point of a gun. This is unacceptable in a free society. Too often we forget the way we act, how we spend our money, and even what we like on Facebook are all votes for how we think society should behave. Every action, every dollar, every like matters. If we want something to change, we have to debate, protest, or even boycott until the free exchange of ideas changes society for the better in a peaceful, sustainable way. A reliance on the state for swift, violent change is destructive and unsustainable. Rely instead on yourself and a good argument.